thousands of miles apart. No boats capable of crossing oceans, no shared language, no contact of any kind. And yet, they built the same things. Pyramids in Egypt, in Mexico, in Cambodia, in Sudan, in China. Civilizations that had absolutely no way of communicating with each other, separated by entire oceans and thousands of years. And they all independently decided to build massive triangular stone structures pointing at the sky. That is not a coincidence, and the explanation is stranger than any theory you've heard before. Let's start with the pyramids, because most people think they know this story. They don't. The Egyptian pyramids at Giza were built around 4,500 years ago. Everyone knows that. What most people don't know is that on the other side of the planet, at almost exactly the same time, the people of Corral in modern-day Peru were building their own pyramids. No contact with Egypt, no knowledge of Egypt, no shared culture, no shared religion, no shared anything. Same structure, same purpose, same moment in history. And it doesn't stop there. The Maya pyramids of Mexico, the Temple Mountains of Angkor Wat in Cambodia, the Nubian pyramids of Sudan. There are actually more pyramids in Sudan than in Egypt. Most people have no idea. The pyramid-shaped tombs of ancient China, the step pyramids of ancient Indonesia. Every single one of these cultures, separated by oceans and centuries, looked at the world and decided that the most important thing they could build was a massive triangular structure that rose toward the sky. Why? The conventional answer is that the pyramid shape is simply the most stable structure you can build with heavy materials. Stack stones in a pyramid, and they support each other. Stack them in a rectangle, and eventually the walls collapse. So the argument goes, every culture independently discovered the same engineering solution. That explanation is logical. It's also incomplete, because it doesn't explain why every single one of these cultures built their pyramids as religious sites. Not as storage, not as fortresses, not as homes, as places to connect with something above them, as monuments pointing at the sky, as locations where the boundary between the human world and whatever was above it felt thinner. That's not engineering. That's something else entirely, and the pyramids are just the beginning. Consider the flood myth. Almost every culture on Earth has one. Ancient Mesopotamia, a great flood, one righteous man, a boat, animals saved 2 by 2. Sound familiar? The same story appears in ancient Hindu texts thousands of years before the Bible. The ancient Greeks had it, the Norse had it, indigenous cultures across North America had it, Aboriginal Australians had it, ancient China had it. These cultures had no contact with each other. Some of them existed on opposite sides of the planet, and yet they all independently developed the same story about a catastrophic flood that destroyed most of humanity and left a small group of survivors to start over. There are two possible explanations for this. Either something actually happened, a real catastrophic flood event so massive it left a memory in every surviving human culture on Earth, or there is something in the human mind itself that generates this story independently every time a civilization reaches a certain point. Both explanations are deeply unsettling in different ways. The flood myth is one example, but once you start looking, you find this pattern everywhere. Sun worship, practiced independently by the Egyptians, the Aztecs, the ancient Japanese, the Incas, the ancient Celts, the Mesopotamians, cultures with zero contact, all independently deciding that the sun was divine and needed to be honored with ritual. Serpent mythology. The snake as a symbol of wisdom, danger, transformation, and power appears in virtually every ancient culture on Earth. Ancient India, ancient Mesopotamia, ancient Egypt, the Maya, the Aztecs, ancient China, ancient Greece, the Aboriginal Australians. Every culture independently looked at a snake and saw something sacred. Megalithic stone structures, not just pyramids. Massive stone monuments built across the world during the same rough period of human development. Stonehenge in England, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, the oldest known megalithic structure built 12,000 years ago. The stone circles of West Africa, the Moai of Easter Island, the megalithic temples of Malta. The pattern is undeniable, and it demands an explanation. Here's what scientists actually believe is happening, and it changes the way you think about what you are. The human brain is not a blank slate. It doesn't arrive in the world empty and fill up with whatever culture surrounds it. It arrives preloaded, with instincts, fears, attractions, and what the psychologist Carl Jung called archetypes, deep structural patterns that exist in every human mind regardless of culture or experience. The fear of serpents is wired in. Primates that encountered snakes over millions of years of evolution developed a hardwired threat response to them. That response is still in you. It was in every ancient human who ever lived, and when different cultures independently tried to make sense of the things that frightened and fascinated them most, the snake became sacred everywhere, because the snake triggered the same deep response in every human brain everywhere. The pyramid shape appears everywhere because the human brain, when it tries to imagine a connection between earth and sky, between human and divine, instinctively reaches for height, for something that rises, for a structure that points upward. That instinct is not cultural, it's neurological. The flood myth appears everywhere because somewhere in the deep memory of our species, possibly going back to the end of the last ice age when sea levels rose dramatically and coastlines were swallowed, there is a real memory of catastrophic water, a memory so old and so traumatic that it embedded itself not just in stories, but in the structure of how human minds make meaning. We think of ancient civilizations as separate, as isolated experiments in human culture, developing independently, arriving at different answers to the questions of existence. But what the pyramids and the flood myths and the serpent gods and the stone circles are telling us is something more interesting than that. They are telling us that beneath all the differences, the language, the clothing, the religion, the food, there was always one species, one mind, one set of deep instincts and fears and needs, expressing itself in different places in different languages, but always arriving at the same answers. The ancient Egyptians and the ancient Maya never met, but they were the same people, running the same brain, asking the same questions, and so are you. This has been Primal Code. Next week, we go even deeper into the humans who existed before us and what really happened to them. Subscribe so you don't miss it.